Right, in the first two videos, I described the geological and anthropological heterogeneity of the mountain. Now, in order to describe the heterogeneity of the ceremonial context of the mountain, I have to tell you some stories that integrate what Grant calls the most abstract and the most pragmatic truth. So he wants to tell you there is something that is both the most abstract but the most pragmatic truth in the world. And that's a coupling to which I'll return a few times. Grant articulates a sophisticated theory that integrates creation, human shortcomings, and the possibility that humans can access the ultimate source of energy. Now that's a fairly pressing issue in our time. How can humans access and harness the ultimate source of energy? His analysis of the proper use and exchange of resources contributes new information to Crow studies. In a series of letters he wrote as we developed this paper, he says, quote, "Myths and legends are usually grounded in efforts to explain the creation of the earth and of men. Each legend of every people are exceedingly interesting and beautiful. The legends of the Crow people come from their yearning to satisfy their desires for a good and moral world." That's a pretty good description for comparative study of religions, don't you think? People they're yearning to satisfy their desires for a good and moral world. So the foundation of these stories is a theory of energy. Let's go to slideshow. Here we go. I hope you can read it. If you can't, I'm going to try to move fast and get this part done. The foundation of the Crow stories is the theory of energy. They called this energy Akbahi Lashe, the ultimate source. The Apsalika were thoroughly overwhelmed by Akbahi Lashe, a conviction of a force that does the overcoming and whose powers are limitless. The quality of ultimate source caused the Apsalika to acknowledge that this entity has final authority over them, and therefore the convictions with which they deal with nature and the universe are valid and binding, permanent and sacred. Now, if you unpack that, there's a theory of governance, energy, economy, and orientation. Their dealings with the ultimate authority are valid and binding. It sounds like a constitution of sorts, right? Permanent and sacred, a kind of theology in the relationship to the land as well. Now, in a further expansion, I want to highlight his link between a source of energy and the logical inference that such a source generates, which means we make logical connections to what we see at work in the world. This illustrates how his theory of energy is both abstract and pragmatic. So the logical inference ties one to the experience of this overwhelming power. It both is abstract and pragmatic. He writes, "The Crow people, living so close to nature with logical inference, observe the universal and permanent qualities of energy that is in nature. By sacrifice and prayer, the Crow people become part of this energy. The Crow people who achieve this energy have achieved sufficient prominence throughout the history of the Crow people to serve as widespread models for other Crow people and as objects of admiration. And this constitutes a loosely bounded canon in an ultimate source of energy." That is, the stories about the people who were able to access the power of the ultimate source and with that power become effective warriors and leaders. They become a loosely bounded canon. It's not a Bible. It's an oral history of these powerful people. And it regards then the source of energy as the fundamental theological concern. The faith in an ultimate source of energy arouses a sense of order and the emotion of the Crow people, right? So if you want to talk about what is going to arouse and inspire uh, a sense of the ultimate significance of your place in the world, it is faith in this ultimate source of energy, in the creative power of the universe. All right. He surmises, quote, "The true nature of all life is energetic and fluid. All the forces that ever existed resulted from the convergence of all the truths in nature, including man. Nature is the most abstract truth as well as the most practical. The workings of nature from season to season are its own evidence." So, nature, according to this worldview, is the stage upon which the exchange of energy between the ultimate source and humans occurs. And I use the word stage very purposefully. As abstract truth, nature requires our stories in order that we can relate to it. So like a stage, it's a surface upon which the stories are told. As the most practical truth, it is the spectrum of abundance and scarcity, overflowing resources always coupled with human vulnerability to the limitless power of sun, wind, rain, snow, mountain, river, predator, and prey. So the practical, when Bulltail says it's its own evidence, do you remember the floods last spring? Right? There's the evidence, is what he's saying. It's very practical. Nature is a stage because it is the place where humans perform their gifts of offering tobacco, prayer, and fasting. So it is the stage upon which they demonstrate to the ultimate source their devotion. So how do humans engage with the ultimate source of energy? I'm looking at my watch, 42. I'm still okay. Nature, according to this worldview, oops, we did that. How do they do the ultimate source of energy? Quote, "The operation of man upon nature are so insignificant that man's feeble attempts to change nature do not vary the energy in nature. The energy in nature is less grand when man attempts to mold nature to his level, but it never shuts down and does not dissipate, only diminishes. The energy level in nature is essential to its perfection. The divine beauty in nature and the love of man to nature is that which is found in combination with the human will and never separate. We are taught by this will that nature is affiliated to every individual ever born." And that's an important final note there, that for Bulltail, this is not an exclusive theology. He believes that Crow people have a tradition and history of a particular awareness and access to the energy, but that nature is affiliated to every individual ever born. So nature is the stage upon which all human beings belong. Now this is a very promising relationship. God, I think 4 more minutes. As he says, divine beauty is found in combination with the human will and never separate. So what is the problem? How come we got chaos happening around us? The problem begins at the beginning. So here's your creation story. After Duck and Wolf helped Creator to make the land and populate it with good things they wanted for fun, food, shelter, the Creator realized that none of the animals looked up to see the stars and sun. So Creator made humans out of the mud. Once created, they were quite vulnerable compared to the other animals, so he gave them some gifts. To women, he gave the teepee for shelter, fire for cooking and warmth, and the ability to mother babies. To men, he gave tools and weapons for hunting. Man's third gift was the gift of the Creator's tears. The man scoffed at the gift of tears and called them useless and declared that men do not cry and do not need tears. Creator rebuked the man, telling him that the tears were the power with which the Creator created the world. Now, if we think about this in terms of energy and exchange, the tears then become the currency for that supernatural power. The tears are how the Creator was exchanging. It's like the money. It's like the coin. The tear becomes the way that the divine power enters the world. Because men rejected the gift, the Creator would only provide the tears in the most desolate places, and man would have to fast, discipline himself, and seek out the Creator's mercy in order to receive the gift of tears. Now, this is an exceedingly interesting and beautiful legend. It sets up a good and moral order in which a problem is identified, men rejected the Creator's tears, and a solution was offered. The Creator nevertheless does not want the Apsallika to be helpless, so that if they will make prayers and fast and offerings, they can again receive the gift. So I'm going to call this problem the problem of the first separation, because by rejecting the gift, they did create a separation, and they have to go to desolate places like the top of Heart Mountain in order to prove to the Creator that they are worthy of the gift again. The Creator urged the Apsallika to seek the tears of his creation so that they may not be helpless in their lives. This practice is wrongfully called vision quest. I bet you guys have heard of stuff being called vision quests. The Apsallika call it to seek for tears. The few that are rewarded with the gift of tears are called Baishtagushte, eyes that have been opened to the supernatural. Getting my time. All right, I got to cut again, and it'll take us one more. Okay, thanks. Whoops.